Hey and welcome back to Mega Man 4 for the Game Boy. In this part we're going to continue with the other four Robot Masters that we didn't take down in the first part, which of course in true form are the Mega Man 5 Robot Masters. At least the Mega Man 5 NES Robot Masters. It gets a little bit confusing, kind of jumping between the different series of Mega Man for these things, but hey, we're 4 games in, I kinda got used to it. But yes, up first is Charge Man, and Charge Man's stage, it pretty much uses the same train motif as it did in Mega Man 5 NES, and that does mean that it sort of jitters the screen about in some rooms. In other rooms it's not quite as noticeable, but I think that ultimately goes down to the size of the rooms in question rather than how much it's actually jittering. Naturally, if you spend more time in a room, you're going to notice the little thing jolting around that little bit more. It's not quite as annoying as Will Gator's stage from Mega Man X2, because that kind of gets on my tits a little bit. You don't always notice it if you're looking up gameplay videos of it, because a lot of people, especially in older runs, they just render their footage off at 30 FPS. But if you're playing the game yourself, or if you're watching it at 60, yeah, it's sort of jolting all over the place. It's bouncing every other frame, and it's it gets a little bit grating when you're trying to manoeuvre your way around Will Gator's stage, and it's just a constant stutter. It can make me feel a little bit uneasy to look at it after a while. But that's another game. This game here, or at least I suppose I could go back over my opinion of Mega Man 5 NES a little bit, given that's where these robots are coming from. Because Mega Man 5 NES we've covered quite a long time ago on the channel. I don't know if my thoughts on it are still the same as they were. I think Mega Man 5, I kind of wrote it off as being a bit safe and a bit dull, really, which I guess it kind of is. Because it doesn't really bring much to the table that 4 NES didn't do. And it's Robot Masters, so I don't really remember that much from them. But by the same token, it is a decent enough game in its own right. I feel I kind of undersell it a little bit. And, I don't know if that's entirely fair. It kind of ends up being a product of its sequel number rather than the fact that it is a bad game or that it is a boring game or anything. I think if Mega Man 5 NES was the first game or the second game, I think on the whole it would probably end up being much better received. Granted, we can only sort of theorise with that, but and I should probably clarify a slight slip up that I made in the last part, or at least that I think I made in the last part. It's been a little while since I recorded that, so I'm not entirely sure. But I just saw them little mini E-tanks on that higher path in the last room, and they're not how I described them. I think I described them as being they refill some of your health. In actuality, what they do is you collect 4 of them to get a full E-tank. So it is a bit of a scavenger hunt if you want to make use of them, rather than the full ones, which they still give out full ones in this game, so you don't really need to go to the effort of collecting the mini E-tanks. Just feels like a bit of a dumb extra item for them to add. There's also other items that you can pick up, mainly ones from the shop. I remember reading about this was one of the first games to use the energy equalizer thing, the weapon equalizer. I'm not sure if it's the first or whether it's just one of the first, but it's quite early on in that respect. And then there's things like weapon refills, energy refills, the sort of stuff that you expect to buy from the shops, because the shop in this game, it was kind of a precursor to the Mega Man 7 weapon shop and item shop. And I guess by that logic, the little pea pellet things are also a precursor to the bolts that you would pick up in Mega Man 7. And as a currency, I think bolts are a little bit more charming, it makes a bit more sense thematically rather than here's just another little pellet that you pick up and you sort of settle with that and that does its thing. But yeah, we got the slidey charge kick, and this is quite a cool little weapon power-up. It does sort of put you in harm's way because you kind of have to slide through the thing, and so naturally if you don't slide accurately enough, it kind of you kind of hurt yourself a bit, I guess I'm getting at there. So you got to make sure you're lined up properly and you don't want to kind of go a little bit early. It's kind of a similar thing to the top spin from Mega Man 3 in that you have to be really careful using it, otherwise you'll just end up hurting yourself. Because no one wants to end up hurting themselves, that's not good. But yes, up next is Crystal Man's stage, and Crystal Man's stage, I think it uses the same gimmicks, like you see that guy who shoots the crystals there, the Crystal Joe enemies I think he's called. And by that I mean I just pulled that name out of my arse and I hope it's right. But yeah, it has like these sort of falling crystal gimmicks here. I remember this being a bit more distinct in Mega Man 5 NES, because it was quite reliant on the colour to what I remember. Whereas here, given everything's just in like black, white and a couple of shades of grey, it's not quite as, you know, themed. It's just like, you can sort of get the spiky crystal look going on, but it just doesn't replicate it that well, in my opinion. But there is another thing that I should probably bring up in relation to these levels, in that in the first 4 levels, you saw me pick up the B, E, A and T items, like you just saw me pick up the W from there. With the Mega Man 5 robots, you have to pick up items that spell out Wily, and I should stress you have to pick up these items. It's not like the Beat ones where it's optional and you just get the extra little power-up thing that you can use. No, in this, if you don't pick up the Wily things, then when you get to the castle stage, you won't be able to progress. Like, there's a door with these 4 locks on it in the first part of the castle, and you need the Wily. I suppose they are just items. I don't know what they're meant to be. Like, it works as a key, so I guess I'll refer to them as the Wily keys, just because, you know, if you can't use them, then you can't progress. So you should keep an eye out for them in the stages, and I don't really like that as a concept, because some of them are hidden away a little bit. Like that one in just saying when you saw me pick up the W, that's really hidden away. Like, that's a little side path that you might not even see, let alone think to check out. The fact you might be in a position where you have to go back and look for something without really any hint as to where it may be, because like, obviously I use reference for when I'm recording this so that I know what to do so I can get it down all in one cycle, but on a typical playthrough you're not going to do that. With this kind of game you would want to try and figure things out for yourself, but the idea of going back through stages repeatedly, looking all the like little nooks and crannies to the stages just to find the little item that you didn't know you needed to start with, that sounds like really monotonous backtracking to me. That doesn't sound like the sort of thing that would be that fun as an experience. That sounds like it'd just become a chore. And like, that's not to say that you can't have like little extra things hidden around, but I prefer it when that's like an optional thing, or at the very least so that you only need like a handful of them. You don't need to get all of the things. Like, I suppose an example of this sort of thing being done well, where there's like things to find and that in levels, is I've been playing through Kirby Triple Deluxe, and I don't know if this is something like in every Kirby game, because I actually don't have that much experience with Kirby, honestly, but there's like the sunstones in the levels there, which you need a handful of them to progress, like to unlock the boss stages and that. And if you do get all of them in a world, then you can get like the extra level, but in order to progress through the game you can just get a handful here and there, and they have like quite obvious tip-off points as to where it might be. There's always like a little tease on the map, at least for the most of them. Like, there's a few that are a little bit stealthy, but for the most part, if you see something that looks a little bit interesting off to the side in a level, you might think, oh, I'll go have a little look at that. Like, there might be a door, or there might be like a little path going down somewhere. And so it's like not a random little goose chase, really. And you're probably not going to be in a position where you're wandering around aimlessly hoping you'll see something. So, like, credit there. Granted, I am only like 3 worlds in at the time of recording this, so maybe it will get harder as I progress, but we'll see. But yeah, that was Crystal Man down, so that's 2 of the 4 down already. But that's kind of the thing, you know. Once you've got weaknesses for Mega Man Robot Masters, they just sort of fall like flies, really. But Crystal Man's weapon, I can't actually remember what it is. Like, it wasn't that long ago I recorded this. Let's see it. Oh yeah, that's it. It just sort of, you shoot it, it hits the wall, and then it bounces back in like a handful of pieces. So if you want to be getting a bit more coverage on your attack, you can shoot in, like, it will hit out at 3 points rather than 1. It's not really that useful. It's very situational in terms of like the actual boss that you use him against, which is this guy here, Napalm Man. And yeah, you do have to just sort of tap your foot and wait for that first part of the level to open up, but it's not really much you can do to speed it up. But, you know, no biggie. And this has actually changed quite a fair bit from the NES game. There's that gimmick right there where you can put out the fire with the rain weapon, which obviously wasn't in Mega Man 5 NES, given that that's a Mega Man 4 Robot Master's power. But yeah, you also get Proto Man here giving you a little item that refills all your weapons, which isn't really that useful so early on in the stage. Though I don't think it does always, like, refresh your weapons entirely here. Like, they sort of changed some things around. I can't remember the specifics, but, you know, I suppose it's nice to just have a free healing thing either way. But yes, as per the norm with these playthroughs I'm noticing, we're about halfway through the game and I haven't talked about the story yet, because it's just a throwaway Mega Man story, so I'll talk about that now. Wily sent out a radio transmission, causing robots from the Robot Master Exposition to go berserk, and Mega Man's back on his usual quest to stop the 8 Robot Masters leading the rampage, and the newest in the Mega Man Killer series, Ballade. And that was like the write this work in your own words for your like school project kind of deal with what I read off the I think it was either the Wikipedia page or the Mega Man knowledge base. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it. There's this robot expedition thing, or exposition, whatever you want to call it, and this is reminding me a little bit of Mega Man 6, you know, where there was that like world tournament thing and Dr. Wily corrupted some of the robots under his Mr. X moniker. It's a similar kind of story going on, like he's possessed them, and I want to say that he's made them go Maverick, though it's kind of a different thing, I guess, in the fact that they've been done manually rather than just through like the Zero virus from the X series. But yeah, it's another basic plot, but hey. I suppose there's not really that much they can do with this, even more limiting than like the mainline series, because it's a spin-off, and so you can't really have anything that would like affect the main series lore too much. I've realised how silly that is to say, but if you think like there was the continuity between Mega Man 6 and Mega Man 7 in the main series, in that at the end of Mega Man 6, Wily gets arrested and you see him sort of tied up with that rope, which not as kinky as it sounds, but like, at the end of that game he's like arrested and it looks like he's away for good, and then he actually has to break out at the start of Mega Man 7, so there's like a little degree of continuity going on, which they can't really do that here. I suppose the closest thing you have to continuity in the Game Boy games is that they all star, or at least most of them bar 2 star the Mega Man Killer series. And even then, like I say, Mega Man 2 broke that by having the whole, like, you know, Mega Man from the future thing going on, and we're going to cause this time paradox that we can't really do much about and wouldn't make even the faintest bit of sense to, like, think about beyond, like, the surface level. But yes, as you can see, here is Napalm Man. He's weak to Crystal Man's weapon. I was saying about how you can make use of it by shooting it at the wall and letting it bounce back, but honestly you're better just shooting it forward like a standard attack, and it completely wipes away his energy really quickly. So yep, you do that a few times and he just loses, he fails, he dies. I haven't mentioned it yet, but I do quite like this like weapon get music. It feels like, you got that satisfaction of powering up, and you've got this new skill, and it's like that little bit triumphant but reserved. Like, it's not a massive victory theme. Like, you don't get like the fucking Fairy Fencer F like conquering glory theme that I love so much. I've been playing through that game recently, that's why it's on my mind. But it is enough for you to think like, I've earned this new weapon and I've powered up because of it, and I can do some new damage with it. It's pretty cool. I think this is one of the areas of like sound design that I don't think gets enough credit, because like you can think of like the level themes and boss themes. You think of like, this is the theme of this amazing boss fight, or this is the theme that I was sort of humming along to as I broke into the enemy headquarters, or I went and like hunted down, like say, Stone Man here, or whatever it might be. But the little motif songs, they are the sort of things that they're very effective in what they do, and someone has had to think through how to make them effective. Like, it's an art piece just like the full songs. But because it's just such a subtle thing, you don't really think of it as much. Like, you're not gonna really think, oh, this game had this amazing like victory theme, or it had this amazing like power-up theme. You tend to just think of the main musical pieces. And yeah, they did put in the hippo enemies from Ringman stage in here as well, which I suppose it's making that little bit extra use of them, and I can appreciate that, it kind of makes it a little bit more interesting in terms of like the levels when they do switch things up a little bit like this. It's a little thing that I've always kind of been a sucker for when games reuse levels from other games, when instead of just being like a perfect reimagination or even just like a perfect remake, they sort of use the fact that they have the assets from all these different levels they were using, and they sort of mash them up a little bit. Like, they take a little element of this and put it into this other level just to kind of make it that little bit different. Like, it is still reusing assets, and it is still like, relying on previous creativity rather than making new things. But it's enough to kind of make it feel like a proper remix rather than just a bog standard remake. Maybe we didn't need two of him, maybe just the one at the start was good enough. But yeah, the sort of thing I'm getting at is that it's something that Sonic Generations did a lot that I liked, in the fact of like they remade Green Hill, but they didn't just perfectly remake Green Hill, they added in a few little features from Emerald Hill, like the sort of twisty pipe things, not pipes, but like the twisty platforms, and they also add in a little bit of the underground section, which is possibly a nod to the Sonic 1 Master System version. There's little things like that, and to see it show up in these Mega Man games here, I think that's cool. Now, granted, they could do it a bit more, because like they clearly have all the Mega Man 4 assets on like the game data, or at least like the Mega Man 4 assets that they're using for the Mega Man 4 levels in this game. So to throw some more little things, like little features and that into these levels could be kind of cool. It's not like a massive thing, and I don't really feel it suffers because it doesn't do that. But I kind of think because this is like reusing things from another game, I kind of would like to see a lot more changed up just to kind of make it feel unique, because I kind of feel like a lot of people who play this game will have played the NES games. It's like, if you're a Mega Man fan, you probably played the mainline games as well as playing this, so you might as well make this like that little bit unique. And I do say this purely well aware of the fact that it's doing that already by having both Mega Man 4 and 5 Robot Masters in a single game. And it kind of is. I've just kind of clocked onto the fact that it's using the same kind of approach as Mega Man for the Game Gear, because that borrows elements from 4 and 5 as well. But that sort of changes stuff up a lot more. It's a completely different game again. Like, for a start, it's in colour, and it has like Starman, Stone Man. I think I'm trying to think who else it has. I think it has Bright Man, and I know Toad Man's like a later boss, and I think Wave Man's a later boss. There's someone else in there as well who I'm not thinking of, but You know, that's an entirely different game in itself. But yes, this is the weapon shop, or I keep saying weapon shop, it's the item shop. So you can get yourself some bits and pieces here. I am getting the weapon equalizer thing, if I recall correctly here, so I can pick up the weapon refill items and it automatically refills the item that has the least energy, rather than just the one that you have selected, and that's just like a more efficient way of filling up the things that you actually need, rather than having to constantly go into the menu, switch to the item, do all that sort of fucking around. You don't have to do that now, so you can just like pick up the items as you see them and not have to worry about anything. Like, granted, I suppose there are some situational purposes where that might not be entirely useful. That might be like not exactly what you want. Like if you were trying to power up a specific like weapon. But saying that, you know, they're generous enough with refills in Mega Man games that it's not that big of a deal on the whole. But this now is Ballade stage. We're making our way closer to him because unlike the other Mega Man killer robots that we've fought in these games so far, we do actually have a rematch with Ballade. Because, like, he's just here, he wants another fight, I suppose. But if I'm to read off what the Mega Man knowledge base has to say about Ballade, Ballade has great pride and believes he is the strongest robot. Ballade attacks with a powerful explosive called the Ballade Cracker, and has a second form that increases his strength, which is what this rematch is against, his second form. Ballade's great strength is his love for taking on challenges, although this mindset does make him a rather simplistic individual. He likes to be the best, often proving himself by fighting robots that he thinks look strong, and dislikes opponents that have no competitive spirit. So basically, good old Ballade here, he likes himself a fight, and that kind of, I suppose that's a pride thing, if you're thinking about his characteristics, that, you know, he wants to fight, he wants everyone to be like him and also want to fight, so he wants, like, worthy competition that he can, like, take on and take down. And I guess, like, I can respect that, but that kind of hard-headed personality, I can see that also being quite annoying to be around. But this section here, this is like a follow-on to the section that we had earlier on in the playthrough, where we had to just take down these things. This is really fucking fiddly, I'm gonna be honest here, like, I could do without this. This took me a good few takes to get down without, like, falling through the floor or just standing here for too long trying to make use of different weapons to, like, try and speed up the process. I did start off using the Ballade Cracker itself there, and then I tried the Napalm, and I'm going back to the Ballade Cracker and just trying to make my way through as efficiently as I can. Your mileage may vary on whether I actually succeeded or not, but hey ho, it is what it is. I'm nearly there, I'm getting there. But it's kind of, I'm trying to make out whether this is meant to be like an escape sequence or not. It doesn't really feel like it, it's just like making our way through these different rockets or bombs. They're bombs, I suppose, because rockets implies it'd be moving, whereas these are just spinning around in place. Let's just go through this door, and I think we may have somewhere else to move on to. And I've got to say, this is a really cool design. I am really impressed with the sprite work in general for like the Wily areas in all these Game Boy games, because they only have the 4 colours available, but they've made some really detailed looking areas. And look at this fucking like bone ship. This looks really cool. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, join me next time for the finale of Mega Man 4 Game Boy, where we'll be taking on Wily himself. Bye bye for now.